that isn't going to cause them anxiety and more trauma than they already have been through.
Nancy, you just said there, think like a mom. Elizabeth, is that the instinct that comes to you as well?
Yes. And to Nancy's point, there is a fine, it's a balance, right, of helping your kids feel safe and not giving them too much information, and finding a way to present it to them in terms that is going to keep that anxiety as low as possible.
And do both of you, Nancy and Elizabeth, do you have policies with your kids about what they might read online or what they might happen to see on TV screens you might have around the house?
To be totally honest, I don't, because in our house, first of all, we don't watch that much television, but they do have devices, and we do talk about use issues at the dinner table and at breakfast. So we tend to eat all of our meals together, and news is always a topic of discussion around the table.
Yeah, and I would agree with Nancy. I will have the news on, in the morning. My son is usually good about if there's a story he doesn't want to hear, he'll ask to change the channel, or if I feel that it's too much, then I will change the channel. With this in particular, this incident, I have not been watching the news in front of the kids. My son does not have a phone, or he's not on social media, so that's a good thing for him. And from what I understand, the students in his class haven't been talking a whole lot about it at school. But my daughter is 13. She has a phone. She has social media. She asked if she could watch the body cam footage from the police, and I said no. I absolutely would not allow that. And we've talked about, what is appropriate and what's not appropriate. And, she and I have gone over there's a massive memorial, two of them actually, at the church. She has been comfortable going over there to pay respects. My son has not. He's not. He doesn't want to do that, so I don't push that. And with my daughter being older, I feel like she can handle things a little bit more. But we just, at this point in time, we keep it at a minimum. But my kids are aware of it because, like Nancy, we do talk a lot at the dinner table about what's happening in the news. And my kids are pretty aware of what's going on in the world and in our country.
Do either of you feel that you would ever have to give your kids instructions about what they should do if something happens at their school? And I'm really sorry to have to ask that question.
Yes, absolutely. The first day of school, when we go in and we do meet the teacher, they do they do drills for emergency drills, and in case a shooter was in your school, they do the active shooter drills and those sorts of things. But we do walk around the campus and we say, if there was a situation, where would you hide? So we do look at, how to use their desk, how to use bookcases, how to use certain things in the classroom to try to hide to protect yourself. And we do identify safe places throughout the school. So yeah, absolutely.
That's great. I'm going to borrow that, Nancy, because my kids do the school drills, but this really has made me think a lot about the school and the layout and things like the type of doors that they have at the school. It's really made me kind of hone in on things. So yeah, I anticipate taking some of Nancy's advice there and talking to our kids about those types of things. They also do active shooter drills, and about 3 years ago I was at the elementary school when they did one, and it was absolutely horrifying, and I cried. I was in a room with children and a teacher, and so I tried to not let the kids see how upset I was, but it is the most upsetting thing I've ever experienced in a school.
Yes, I know. In my, I have an 18-year-old special needs son, and when they have special like active shooter drills in his school, he has a lot of anxiety and he's nervous, and he tends to talk. The more nervous he is, he tends to talk, and he has to be quiet. So we train him to get on his phone, and he texts us a minute by minute of what is happening in the school during these active shooter drills. So I will randomly on a day start getting texts from him during the active shooter drills. And that is terrifying as a parent. I mean, I'm glad he has that skill, but it doesn't make me feel good.
Yeah, I agree with Nancy. It's terrible that this is a thing that our children have to learn. My daughter's first drill was when she was not even quite yet 3 years old in preschool, and it was right after Sandy Hook. And the reason was
Yeah, no, it just feels like we are creating more trauma for our children from a very young age. So we shouldn't be surprised when a lot of these children grow up and they have some, anxiety and panic attacks, because we are creating this level of basically mental, not necessarily illness, but mental anxiety. And a lot of this is just self-created because of the society that we have formed for these children. And there is an answer to this, but we don't have strong enough leadership that is going to stand up to the NRA and certain gun lobbyists to say enough. So it's time for people to stand up and say enough, because it's no longer okay. It's just not okay.
Nancy Thompson and Elizabeth Reese in conversation from the United States. This is OS on the BBC with me, James Reynolds. We are live from the heart of the BBC's main newsroom in London. Let's take a look at a few more stories in the news. Prosecutors in Mexico say they've identified 9 suspects who are thought responsible for the 39 deaths in a fire at a migrant detention center in the border town of Ciudad Juarez. 5 of the suspects are reported to be security guards in the facility. Authorities face mounting pressure to explain why the victims, who came from Central and South America, were not freed as soon as the fire broke out. 2 Israeli settlers have been charged with what's described as a terrorist assault. The charges in relation to an attack on the town of Wada in the occupied West Bank, which has become a symbol of the latest escalation in the conflict between Israel and the Palestinians. Lawyers representing the Hollywood actors Gwyneth Paltrow and the retired eye doctor Terry Sanderson are setting out their closing arguments in court today. The pair are suing each other over a skiing accident in Utah in 2016. The verdict is expected a little later today. Now, with a look at all the sports news, here's Mike McCarthy.
An International Olympic Committee President Thomas Bach says it's deplorable for some European governments to argue against the full return of Russian and Belarusian athletes to international sport. Athletes from the 2 countries have been banned since Russia's invasion of Ukraine, but on Wednesday, the IOC recommended they should be allowed to compete as individual, neutral athletes. The recommendations don't cover next year's Olympic Games in Paris. Bach has accused governments arguing against the return of double standards and failing to respect the autonomy of sport.
It cannot be up to the governments to decide which athlete can participate in which competition. This would be the end of world sport as we know it today.
The semi-final lineup in football's Women's Champions League will be completed this evening. Both home teams hold 1-0 leads going into tonight's quarter-final second legs. German champions Wolfsburg are just getting underway against Paris Saint-Germain. They're playing for the right to face Arsenal in the last 4. Later, Chelsea host the holders Lyon, with Spanish giants Barcelona awaiting the winners. And after heavy rain, they're playing catch-up at the Miami Open Tennis. Romanians Rona Castella will meet the winner of the delayed quarter-final between Ekaterina Alexandrova and Petra Kvitova. Later, Jessica Pegula meets Elena Rybakina for a place in the final. In the men's draw, they're at the quarter-final stage, with world number 1 Carlos Alcaraz taking on American Taylor Fritz.
Here in central London, a few of our journalists here have suddenly turned around as soon as they saw me. We're still getting used to being back in the newsroom, but we have explained to people that we never ambush people, that
the government led by Sheikh Hasina, it was very difficult to work on some of the controversial stories. Whenever I used to travel outside Bangladesh, you would always have people from the police intelligence following you like a minders, and they will be sitting at the hotel reception asking my producer what your boss is doing today. So that kind of surveillance was always there. But if you look at the local journalists, they were the ones who faced the brunt of these kind of actions by various governments, and especially in Bangladesh, there have been cases filed on this Digital Security Act, which is very controversial. And in fact, the UN Human Rights Commission has asked Bangladesh to revise this law because anyone who's criticizing the government, this is about Muslim dissent and criticism, some of the basic values in a democracy, and they say the law needs to be changed, and they are accusing the government of targeting political opponents as well as those who criticize the government even on social media are being filed various charges and put in jail.
I'm going to find a country one day in a region that you haven't covered. I have not found that yet, but you've written, of course, about the cost of living crisis. You discussed it in the first answer. Tell us a bit more about how easy, how difficult it is for people in Bangladesh to buy staple foods.
So Bangladesh, to be fair, has witnessed this very sustained economic growth for the last 10 or 12 years, 6 to 7%. But whether it has reached all sections of the society, that is a big question. Even though the government says that they brought the poverty down from 40% to 20% in the last 15 years or so, what has happened is the food prices, according to one of the studies by the economic think tank, has gone up by 30%. And also the transport cost because of the fuel price. So for those who are pulling the rickshaws, those who are peddling the rickshaws, for them getting, for example, £3 or $5 a day is a big struggle. Whereas the food price is going up, the transport price is going up, but the fares are not going up. So for them, for their earnings will remain as in $5 or $6. That is becoming, putting food on the table is becoming a big struggle for many of these people from low income group. As when I was in Sri Lanka, one family, they said instead of eating 3 meals, they were eating 2 because of that. So that is a big issue.
And Jan, as always, thank you so much for joining us. I'm just going to step half away from here because there are colleagues working right up to the final deadlines in about 6 minutes' time. But I want to give you one final story before we go. It's about Elon Musk. He's been tweeting about donuts in response to a tweet which said that sugar's poison. Elon Musk, who might describe himself as a controversialist, said, "I eat a donut every morning, still alive." What's it like having a donut for breakfast? We called Mary Graham, a nutritional therapist.
So let's think about this. Okay, when we look at donuts, you've got a high level of sugar in such a small portion. So you can have anywhere between 15 to 30 grams of sugar in that small portion. Now, I don't know quite how big Elon's donuts are. I'm not going to query that. But when you think about a donut, you're looking at about 250 to 550 calories. You should only be having a maximum for a lady 24 grams of sugar a day, and about 100 calories of that should be included. For men, it's about 150 a day. But what that is, that's a generalisation. That is not based on the basal metabolic rate for each individual. That is generalised. So when it comes to a donut, that's really high on the glycemic index chart. What that means is, whilst it feels good initially, it gives you a really high surge of blood sugar. That then can lead to mood drops, can affect your concentration, it can affect all sorts, so it's really not a great way to start.
I don't know where you're at, but I know you're in the UK, but here in London, Mary, you know as well as I do, wherever you walk, there are more deals for donuts. There are now donut vending machines in one particular tube station not far from here at work. I've seen in various countries around the world, and particularly when I was in Colombia, people would take donuts on airplanes. It seemed to be the thing that you would buy when you want to take a short flight in Colombia. People would take them as gifts. When you see all this, are you tempted to say to people, just one? Are you tempted to say to people, maybe have later, not now? Or do you think, hey, that's their choice?
At the end of the day, it's always the person's choice, but I believe everything in moderation. If you're doing this every day, that is really not good. If you remember a while back, we had the comparison